Hello, everyone. We are so happy to be joining the Circular City Week New York Festival for the second year in a row. My name is Joyce Haloun, and I am the project coordinator at the Circular Economy Research Center in Paris and the Circular Economy Alliance. For those of you who don't know anything about the Circular Economy Research Center, it is the first registered research center on circular economy, and it has been acknowledged by the European Circular Economy stakeholder platforms as one of the good practices in the domain. And leveraging on its research capacity, the Research Center acknowledged the strong gap between the skills required for the transition to circular economy and the current available skills. Together with the Circular Economy Alliance, they embarked on an educational journey to bridge this gap with the goal of providing research-driven skills and education with the aim of upskilling and reskilling the global workforce. We are so proud to be part of several EU-funded research projects, such as the Shared Green Deal, Ideal Cities, Smart Chip, CEIOT, and BioPhoenix. I would like to welcome you all for a very interesting panel discussion that is mainly focused on education and skills and how to get ready for the emerging job market in a circular economy. A green revolution requires a shift in mindset and a cultural adaptation for the general population, and as well the upskilling and reskilling of the global workforce. At Circular Economy Alliance, we highly believe that education is the essence of a successful transition to circular economy and achieving collective change. Therefore, we are here today to highlight the importance of education and driving the transition to circular economy and bridging the skills gap. Before we start with our panel discussion, we will watch a very short video that elaborates on the educational journey of CERC and CEA together.
Will combating climate change be a costly burden to society? It will if we continue the inherited linear form of production our society depends on now. The way we produce, consume, and dispose is not only a threat to our environment, it will have long-term consequences for our economy too, challenging our chances of securing prosperity for future generations. The detrimental impact on our economy, society, and environment must be stopped and reversed. Reducing pollution and consumption is not enough on its own. We need to embrace a new approach for active climate restoration and generating effective change. Circular economy calls for a mind shift leading to personal, professional, societal, economical, and governance transformation. A green industrial revolution. It outlines crucial principles for effectively altering our global ecosystem to become genuinely, financially, and environmentally sustainable. We need to think globally while acting locally. A new, disruptive, and innovative-driven approach will only be effective if structurally integrated in our society and economy. Individuals, corporations, societies, and governments will need crucial new skills to benefit from a more resource-efficient economy. Individual engagement will be a key driving force behind the transition. The Circular Economy Research Center is a leader in the field. It's putting theory into practice, converting leading data-driven research into upskilling and reskilling the workforce. In collaboration with the Circular Economy Alliance, we've accumulated a comprehensive body of knowledge and niche training programs. We enable private and public entities to share best practices, exchange experiences, and generate the awareness necessary for swift and successful transformation. Our goal is capacity building through community building. Circular economy is the new normal. Organizations and individuals need to upskill and reskill to be relevant in this circular access, certification, and training programs, placing your organization at the forefront of the green revolution. To learn more about how we support organizations to achieve the highest level of long-term sustainable transformation, visit circulareconomyalliance.com.
Thank you so much. Joining me today on this inspiring panel discussion, an amazing group of panelists that I would like you to meet. I will start by introducing you to Dr. Yorgos Dimitriou. He's a pioneer in the field of circular economy and leading cutting-edge research at the Circular Economy Research Center in Paris. He's a professor in circular economy and new business models with a very strong passion for technologies, data analytics, education, and skills that can expedite the transition to circular economy. He has around 20 years of experience in the EU landscape and has authored and co-authored numerous impactful reports, scientific publications, and articles. Next, I have the honor to have with me Dr. Mark Esposito. He is the chairman of the Circular Economy Alliance Strategic Foresight Board. He is recognized internationally as a top global thought leader in matters relating to the fourth industrial revolution, and he is the co-founder at Nexus Frontier Tech. Mrs. Amy Ryan, it's a pleasure to have you today with us. For those of you who don't know Mrs. Amy, she is the vice chairwoman of the Circular Economy Alliance Strategic Foresight Board and a chief in the dynamic field of environmental risks, social cause, and regulatory governance, including ESG. She is as well the co-founder and CEO of ESG Strategies. We have as well Mrs. Catherine Wheatman, who is a member of the Circular Economy Alliance Strategic Foresight Board, an international speaker, workshop facilitator, coach, consultant, and host of the Circular Economy podcast. She is the founder of Rethink Global as well. Last but not least, Dr. Saman Sarbaz-Batan. He works on the convergence of circular economy, digital economy, and sustainable competitiveness. He is the author of 3 chapters in the Circular Economy Alliance Body of Knowledge and the COO and Deputy Dean of École des Ponts Business School as well. Welcome, everyone. It's an honor to have you all here today with us. Quick reminder before we start our discussion is that we will be monitoring the chat for any questions that you may have, and we will be more than happy to provide you with all the answers at the end of the session. So our discussion today is highlighting education as skills. So I will start with you, Dr. Mark. When we talk about education, if the logic behind circular economy is so convincing, why are there not many circular economy courses, programs, or trainings out there already by now?
Thanks for the question, Joyce, and welcome to everyone who connected today for this. There's an old story about this, and there's a new story about that. The old story is that circular economy as a concept has been around for quite some time. It's the idea of efficiency of resources, operational effectiveness, natural capitalism. They have permeated the ground in academia for quite some times. The difference with circular economy, the way we talk about it now, is more of the ecosystem appeal in understanding that it's much more about integrated interdependency we have in the economy for this to generate some form of value that will be transformative. So we don't have yet that mindset because fundamentally, whoever was originally part of the specialty, it wasn't a silo of either operations or efficiency or economics or finance. What we are lacking is, of course, the connecting of the dots that really are going to shape new forms of skills. This is why I think universities, they tend to struggle. When we started the work on circular economy, and George and I kind of pioneer some of the first steps together, we realized we were really the first ones, and not because of our own merit, but more because it was difficult for other institutions to see why this would be actually a way forward. So I think it's a matter of time that more and more institutions will eventually catch up. We will probably see more and more jobs around the conversation that are implicit to creating a circular economy infrastructure. So I tend to be more optimistic because I think transitionally speaking, it takes time before we generate that kind of momentum that will shape the mainstream or the critical mass necessary. That said, moving into circular economy from a program perspective also requires courage to have in schools that are able to really integrate multiple disciplines together. And Many schools, they still see the professor as a standalone experience. Many courses in the curriculum are not necessarily integrated. Many professors don't really know what happens in another course. So redesigning curriculum assessment experiences, challenges is fundamentally a large effort that is not easy to undertake. My personal experience has been that few steps are now going in the right direction. Europe is probably pioneering this more and more, fundamentally because we have some heritage in terms of the European ecosystem, the European Union, the policy packages, but even elsewhere. We see this in India, we see this in China, we see this in some African contexts, we see this in North America. We see more and more of this effort moving forward. So I think the next few years will be exciting to see the proliferation of more of these programs, hopefully in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Amy, after what Dr. Mark just shared, in your opinion, will circular economy be on the curriculum in most business schools in the very near future? And if so, in your opinion, then when?
Thank you so much, Joyce, for the question. And I think I think it dovetails nicely off of what Mark just said. It's having circular economy and embedding that philosophy within the pedagogy of education is a complicated task, especially when it's not familiar, because you're asking someone to bring a mindset that's open and allowing to influence other types of subjects that may not be in their particular purview, which in academia is sometimes a feeling of discomfort. So just, as Mark said, it takes a bit of courage to have that conversation and say, look, this is a collaborative opportunity that would engage multiple mindsets and multiple philosophies that will, at the end of the day, be a regenerative tool for both ethical, sustainable, as well as financial gain. So business schools, I think, are going to be the best opportunity because they have a hand in both the technology and innovation as well as financial space. So they can be that interpretive boundary. And that is something that I'm currently working right now on the ground here in North America, because there is a bit of a head start in the EU, which is great. It gives us good opportunities to learn from. But I think, here in North America, there's also a large opportunity to start having that conversation, if not anything now. There's, an opportunity to do that. So I think it's going to take a couple of years maybe here to really get it embedded, but you never know. Lots of ideas just catapult and go fast. So I remain optimistic as well.
I'm so happy to hear that. And actually, what you just said touches bases on my next question for Catherine, which is, I'd like to understand what is, in your opinion, Catherine, the role of education in accelerating the transition to circular economy.
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. And I think it's absolutely critical. It's essential that we really get a better understanding of both the problems that we're facing now and the root causes for those problems, which many of us don't look at on a daily basis, and also some of the solutions. And for that, I think we need what are called in education circles T-shaped skills. So transversal or broad skills, including things like design, digital, understanding more about environmental issues and ecology, social skills, and individual and personal skills, how to be a change maker, how to have conversations. We see, all around us how discussions are now being polarized, and if we're going to come up with solutions work for everybody, then we need to be all of us open to new ideas and not stuck in our existing thinking. And similar to that, we need systems thinking and problem solving skills, and often those aren't necessarily taught. We're kind of expected to just absorb ways to solve problems and ways to have discussions. And then coming back to those, the other part of the T-shaped skills, those specific or deeper skills that are focused on functional areas, disciplines and specialities, and in particular the sciences and obviously natural history. And I noticed in the UK recently, one of the good things or one of the few good things that our government's done, has allowed natural history to be on the curriculum for sort of 14 to 16-year-olds as a qualification. But I also think it's not just about education, it's about lifelong learning. Lots of people will be having to change careers, develop new ways of thinking about the jobs that they do now, applying a sustainability and a circular lens to things. And so there's a whole range of skills that are required there. So I think there's just so many exciting opportunities for people to learn new things and move into different, more meaningful areas of work.
Thank you very much. I have a very interesting question for you, Dr. Yorgos. How important is it to get certified in the domain of circular economy? And in your opinion, what is the role it plays in getting the skills needed for the transition?
Well, this is a very interesting question. And I would try to answer it in a very bizarre way, in the sense that every innovator or every new creator at the beginning of the journey is a loner, and it's a very lonely journey. And this is what's happening now with circular economy. So, and I remember what Mark mentioned, when we started working quite a few years back, we were very few. I mean, we felt quite alone when we were trying this journey. So in answering your question, is acquiring a certification, it helps the people to have a point of reference. It helps the people to affiliate and relate to something in the challenging journey that they are taking right now, to be the first ones to start taking bold steps in their skills transition, because this is what it is about. It's a skills transition, because the market is changing, the market is transforming. And by circular economy not being an exact science like mathematics in isolation, or physics or chemistry, it's a fusion of domains coming together. The pioneers, in my opinion, these early adopters cannot be alone in this journey. And that's why I would also agree with Catherine on what you said, and Amy on the importance of the education in this respect. So getting certified in this journey and being affiliated to organizations, whoever that is, and getting a support system behind your back while you are growing as a professional, or you are diversing as a professional, that's an essential tool that is going to be there to support them. Because let's not forget about the overall trend that we're having ahead of us. It's that the green transition, whether you are in Europe or whether you are in the US or whatever, it's a global transition that is there, and more people are becoming, are getting behind this agenda. And many years ago, we saw few initiatives like the Kyoto Protocol and a few other things. Now we have all the EU regulations, we have standardizations, we have policies, we have COP26, the latest one. So there is a lot of driving force ahead of us. So we need to support these people that they're taking these bold steps ahead into their career and this is our obligation, to create a support system around them and help them elevate and not be the ones to be, to feel alone in this journey. So this is why getting certified in this reskilling process is very important, in order to put the roots soundly there and to have the new trees grow up.
Thank you for sharing. Talking about certification, what can you tell us about the certification program that Circular Economy Alliance just released, and why is it important? What are the benefits that you see there on individual and organizational level?
Well, the certification scheme that Circular Economy Alliance has created has been based on years of research coming from the research at the Circular Economy Research Center, cutting edge research, competitive research, and is entirely data driven. we have put together a very important team of people that have been working all these years, and we have the privilege to have also set up one of the first, if not the first, globally strategic foresight board dedicated to circular economy. And we are very honored and proud to have Catherine, Amy, and Mark serving as part of that strategic foresight board. I think that this is very important milestone for Circular Economy Alliance, because what we are developing right now has been based on our past experience in research and our ability to forecast the future. But having leaders in a foresight board like the ones that I mentioned, we have 12 at the foresight board and 3 with us today. It will help us in a systematic way to look at the future ahead of us, 5 to 10 years or even more from now, and to be able to capture these mega trends and incorporate it into any updates that we will be doing, or any additional things that we'll be doing. So the certification scheme that we have launched, it's aimed at professionals, because we understand that, you know, giving to a professional with little time a scientific journal to read, he's not stupid, he can do it, but he doesn't have the time that we have, because that's our job, to digest it and give them the gist of it and help them to advance in their career. So that is a huge competitive advantage that they will be having through that, alongside being guided by prominent experts in the domain, which have been really exposed all these years and suffered from the same medicine we have suffered ourselves in growing this domain up. So this is very crucial for the education path that professionals will have to undertake the next decade for their transition to the circular economy.
Thank you for your answer. One point I realized from all of the points mentioned is that there's a very strong need for new skills. However, according to the European Skills Index, it shows that there's a lack of skill development, activation, and matching in every European country. Mark, I'll come back to you again. What is, in your opinion, the solution that can bring immediate impact to this fact of lack of skills?
So, Joyce, I think the lack of the new economic infrastructure is really where we might see the root cause. You know, if you're modernizing the way we generate in value, we equally need to match the skills that go with that. And of course, if that value comes by transforming at first linear to circular and then eventually sustaining circular, without necessarily expanding the linear that looks like circular but is still linear, we are mainly empowering millions of jobs to be created that currently do not really exist. So I think the lack of skills is fundamentally the lack of new economic opportunity. They are not bringing a new way of creating value into the market. There is, on top of this, the challenges with mobility inside the European context, because social mobility is quite low, a little bit because of the social protection of the policies, which makes it easier to preserve a job, but not as easy to let go or to hire. And I think there's a clear challenge right now in who are we currently hiring and how much mobility do we really have across the continent. So these are, I think, 2 of the major reasons why the skills index shows deficiency, so to say. I personally think, and we've been knowing this since the time that Accenture was doing pioneering research on their value chains, if we're able to unlock some of this value back into the economy, every sort of like spare capacity requires new jobs opportunity. So it's not really the lack of job that worries me, it's the lack of the innovation that brings needs to job to be created. I think Europe equally needs to rethink is a capital strategy, is equity strategy, is more about whether or not we're able to raise capital for this kind of initiative in the European context. Maybe having a digital integrated market will help more and more. And you know, Europe has a phenomenal ability to create value at the research and development, but we don't necessarily foster it, incubate it as much as elsewhere. So how do we retain this, I think, is a critical function. So these are some of the areas, Joyce, that I think are important for us to improve that index over time.
Totally agree. Actually, as well, achieving a human-centric digital transition calls for a step change in digital skills. More than 90% of jobs require specific types of digital skills. Saman, what can you tell us about that?
Sure. Thank you, Joyce. So basically, we talk about this skill set gap, especially in terms of digital skill sets. So we look at technologies that are the enablers that are driving these changes and also enabling the transition to the circular economy. And then we look at the support level, one of which is the policy initiatives and strategies. So, for example, they obviously they interlink. So, for example, from the policy initiatives and strategies, we have the EU Circular Economy Action Plan, the Digital Product Passport, the Directive Against Greenwashing, the Eco Design Directive. So, all of these are writings on the wall that are giving us the insight about the upcoming job opportunities and also upcoming support that we need to provide at different stages, from academia, from industry, from governing bodies, across all sectors. So to me, the technologies that are also shaping this transition to the circular economy, obviously what we need in order to really keep the focus on human centricity is to understand what is the context that we are living today for the transition and what is upcoming. For example, today, according to research, around 40% of the Europeans are digitally illiterate. That's according to research. And we know what it means. It means that we need to work more on low-tech solutions in order to make sure that in the context of the digital economy, as everything is going to be heavily relied on digital solutions, we need to make sure that the population that is still digitally illiterate, they can also benefit and be a part of the economy, and specifically in the context of circular economy, in parallel to the digital economy, we also need to understand that this transition, circular economy in general, is a multi-stakeholder engagement. It's an economy. We need everyone to be involved. So we need to make sure that the technologies that we are creating are inclusive by design, human-centric by design, and also in terms of compatibility and interconnection and interconnectedness across industries they can support. So that would be my 2 cents. But obviously then we talk about the required skill set. Obviously, since it's a digital economy context within which the circular economy would be really gets really strong. Obviously, we talk about data science, AI, like the program that we have, AI Skills for Circular Transition with Erasmus+, that we are a part of at Circular Economy Research Center and Circular Economy Alliance. So these are the technologies that are also driving the need, also creating job opportunities, also driving the need for the skill set of tomorrow, which if we don't take care of would be a gap in the skill set.
Thank you. Saman, I'll just ask you one more question, if you don't mind. How can we ensure that terminology and certifications available around circular economy is actually compatible across all borders and industries and professional in a very unified way?
Yes, so at the EU level, since 2 years ago, we have the EU Taxonomy on Sustainability and Circular Economy, which was published on the Journal of European Commission. There's also the work of the ISO committee, in which Dr. Yorgos Dimitriou is a member. So these are the work that's been done in order to align the taxonomy of circular economy and sustainability. When it comes to certifications, it's very interesting because this is actually one of the points that we really considered when we started this initiative at Circular Economy Alliance, in order to have academic credibility for certifications, because what we see, which is also a normal trajectory of everything that comes up as new, is that companies tend to start certification programs without having any academic credibility. So that's where we came in and we said, okay, so there is a specific need to address the challenge of the unification of knowledge and skill set, and also to have some credibility in terms of research, in which Circular Economy Research Center of École de Commerce Business School is very active. So these are the things that are really helping in terms of validity of skill set and knowledge and certification and taxonomy across borders and industries.
Thank you, Saman. Amy, I'll come back to you now. After everything that we've heard and acknowledging the importance of skills, do you think lack of investment in skill development in the domain of circular economy will kind of delay the goal of the EU Green Deal initiative in turning Europe climate neutral by 2050?
I think it depends. Saman was really saying some good, important points related to this and how this could actually change, because having to be in the ground and in the operations have been training individuals how to use complex software systems, maybe in a system that is not their native language. Maybe they're not just meant to be on a software system, but their hands are the most mechanically inclined ever. So there's a lot of learning capabilities that we need to be mindful of when we think about transitioning and shifting into a new type of workforce, which is really important because if we're going to be changing the way work is looked at, then we need to be able to understand what shift is that going to also need? What types of technology barriers are we going to address? Or how are we going to develop skills, software, just as we were saying, that would be easy for the end user? Because we have to be mindful of the generational gap, the gaps that we have in education. Not everyone has had the privilege of understanding how these things work. And yet, we all are human. These are very important points that we all share together. And the goal to get there is just as equally as difficult. So how can we get people there by leaps and bounds? And that's all about communicating in an effective way that shares with the plain language of, we are teaching you your job not only to make money on your bottom line, but also to equalize that with the value of human. Unfortunately, our economic strengths are based upon numbers, but those numbers have people behind them. And I think it's important to share that. And so when those philosophies start coming into the mindsets of those who manage and eventually lead organizations, that's going to be a trigger to open up more money and allow, okay, we're going to start influencing more of the training organization, or we're going to have people that are interpreters between both technical as well as analytical, as well as, the nuts and bolts, the compliance language that people need to understand. So I think by 2050, we have a great shot, but we need to be smart about what we are doing. And that requires some sort of validation. So having a set of protocols that are backed by research. And as an auditor, that's something that's very important because you want to be able to always cite something that would be familiar for everyone that's involved with that scope. So across the globe, if there's an international agreement, okay, these are the specific items that circular economy identifies with, then we can start from a baseline. We can all start together. And that's really important to understand how well we're going to go.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I would like to talk a little bit about gender equality, because gender equality is central to sustainable human development. However, according to ILO, the absence of equal opportunities and access to decent jobs and trainings hinder the full contribution of women to the green economy. Catherine, how can we change this fact?
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. And yeah, that's a complicated question, isn't it? I think there's already a trend to try and disassociate professions from gender. And so hopefully we can continue that with the, through circular economy training and so on. And there's also lots of insight to say that diversity in groups, as long as you don't then succumb to groupthink, but diversity in groups leads to better ideas and problem solving. So I think it's really important to have a whole range of diverse views and opinions in every area. And I think over the last 10 years or so, there's been a drive to encourage more women to get involved in the STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering and maths. But as I mentioned before, there's also all the other skills that are really important around systems thinking and problem solving. And I think often women can bring a different perspective to some of those systems thinking trends. And certainly I'm noticing with my podcast guests, who are largely people who've started circular economy businesses or are helping to make the circular economy happen. And in sustainability groups in general, there seem to be an awful lot more women than men represented. So maybe it's an area that women naturally feel drawn towards and motivated to get involved in. So, hopefully there'll be all sorts of ways into that through design skills, through practical skills around crafting and, making and repairing things. As well as lots of other ways that people can get involved in the circular economy. And what I forgot to say earlier on when I was talking about the transversal and the specific skills is that I think we need to both fit circular thinking into other subjects in a similar way to the way we're integrating diversity into subjects, so that we're not looking at things through the lenses that we used to use. Now that we know more about the problems of the world and the reasons that we're facing the climate crisis and resource scarcity and so on, then we need to come at things with a different mindset. And so we can have circular thinking across all those subjects, but we also need circular economy as a subject in its own right, so that we continue to develop it and we realise where perhaps false perceptions or false solutions have been created, and we can do something about that.
Catherine, taking that into consideration, in your opinion, what is the prospect job creation for the transition to circular economy? Will it generate or create more jobs, or will it depend on industries? How do you envision it?
Yeah, I think it will generate more jobs, and I've been interested in green taxes for quite a while, and if we have policies that tax the things we don't want, so pollution, waste and over extraction of resources, and don't tax the things we do want, meaningful jobs, then why wouldn't we have jobs in repair, remaking? Professor Walter Stahl talks about the era of R and the era of D coming through the circular economy. So R is all about repair, reuse, remanufacturing. And then the era of D is about deconstruction, depolymerization, delamination. So there's lots of scientific skills required there. And a lot of those things, particularly around the era of R, are difficult to automate. There's a lot of assessment involved in deciding whether something needs to be remanufactured or can just be refurbished or is ready for repair. It's quite difficult to automate some of those. So I think there's a whole load of opportunities, and making things local and more decentralized also helps create jobs instead of big production lines.
Yeah, agreed. Yorgos, after what Catherine just mentioned, in your opinion, what is the potential skills mismatch from the rise of circular economy? And how can upskilling and reskilling the global workforce play a key role in the transition to circular economy?
Well, thank you, Joyce. Well, first of all, again, what we advocate a lot is that circular economy, it's not one thing only. We really need to see it in vertical layers and in horizontal layers as well. Meaning, for example, when you're looking at industries like, for example, the construction industry or the textile or manufacturing or other industries, depending on the industry you're looking at, there are different approaches that are being, let's say, accommodated. So yes, we have a number of principles that we need to respect, and as Catherine rightfully said, Walter mentions few of them in his work. But the point here that we're looking is from an industrial perspective is the vertical of the industries, and then of course how do they interconnect. But then we have the horizontal elements which are related to the tool chain, whether it's policy related, whether it's financial instruments, whether, I mean, Catherine mentioned about the tax, which is just one of the many instruments. So there are a lot of things that need to be considered. Now, once we have thought about these, then we can start understanding the kind of skills required and the gaps that exist. And then we can figure out how to resolve it. But this is not an approach that will be dictated by any regulation or policy, or is not an approach that will be dictated solely by the industry. It requires a collaborative approach at all levels. It requires a considerable complementarity between the domains and to lift off fragmentation. And we have to be mindful to what we are trying to achieve. Basically, what we are trying to achieve is to initially stop and hopefully reverse the damage we have managed to achieve into the planet, which we will not be able to hand it over in a healthy way to our children. And we have achieved that by not being mindful to all the things that we're talking today. So if we're starting being mindful in the way we construct our buildings, in the way we consume our products, in the way we produce things, in the way everything is being done, this is not going to change. And there's the last thing is that, yes, it is a commercially driven society to the most of it. So if that's the truth, let's assume that if it's a universal truth, then that's a point that we need to focus on. And that's a point where we need to start making the commercial practices being respectful to the end goal. And everything will start little by little in cycles, incremental cycles being adjusted. So nobody should be expecting a miracle that's going to happen from today until tomorrow. It takes process, it takes a lot of work, and it will take a lot of work. But for this, I think for the first time in a long period, we have seen a little bit the societal alignment with the decision-making process. And actually the decision makers, we see that they are really understanding that we need to take action. And also there is the power of the voting sessions. This is democracy, okay? People are mindful to politicians that they are not proposing a number of practices. Okay, it's not heaven yet, but we are going there. And the more we talk about it and the more vocal we are about it, the more we are likely to have people, because, and respecting the 60 people in the audience right now, this is what they have to start understanding. It's not about, abstract theories and vague things. So we have to make people be very conscious that this transition is a step-by-step approach, which is built collectively, and it's not a change that is happening with isolated actions or isolated people.
What is your advice for the workforce out there? How can people secure their jobs in the transition to circular economy?
Get your hands dirty. I mean, okay. The point is that, and honestly, and I just wrote it to an answer to a question right now, is the following. We are transitioning, meaning we are shifting from something to something else. So we need to know where are we shifting to and why. So a bit of education about it, a little bit of reading to understand where we're going and why. This is exactly what the people need. We don't expect everybody to drop their jobs and go back to school and do whatever and change professions. We don't want that to happen, but we want them to start shifting little by little, whether it's reskilling, meaning shifting to another direction, or it's upskilling, meaning advancing their current practice to incorporate the changes that we need. So this is what I would advise people, and this is not a commercial ad. They have to start understanding things and not just listen to blurred messages here and there. They have to become a little bit more critical, a little bit more involved, a little bit more judgmental, because that's how we build the society. That's how we build an economy, and that's how we build the whole ecosystem. And that's why I would agree also with Catherine about the system thinking and design thinking into these processes, because that's how we do it. So that's what I would advise them. Get your hands dirty in a good way.
Perfect advice. Thank you. And I believe this was a very interesting discussion. We have few questions in the chat. So let's get into it. Our audience is waiting for a few interesting answers. There's a question for Dr. Mark that says that there's a lot of building on the foundation of environmental justice work in communities across the world, but still a lot is lacking on the execution level. How do you think we can speed up the process when it comes to environmental justice, as it will definitely affect the transition and the opportunities in the sector of circular economy?
Thanks for this question. So I think the one of the things I sometimes struggle with, but realize that is also quite simple fix, is that there is lack of clarity on the value proposition and where the circular economy fits in the strategy. It doesn't matter whether you are a manufacturing country, a farming economy, or advanced services. Waste as a concept exists in data, as we call it digital, as much as it's in the physical world. So much more about rethinking the value proposition at the strategy level, so that you know why you're doing what you're doing. I think fundamentally, the old adage on the social responsibility was sometimes failing because it was decoupled from the business strategy. I think one of the major lessons we're learning more and more is that the company they're able to really succeed are companies that find the business case inside of the value chain, or why the circular economy should actually happen. I think this is the very starting point. Going back to something that George said before, we don't really know something so complex to the point in which we can envision it now. But what we know is that if we don't have the first step, what George mentioned before, having our hands dirty, we are likely going to create the changes necessary for us to move us to the next level. So to summarize, low-hanging fruit is recognizing where you can have the first step, because that's important to create momentum. Second, and actually important as well, recognize the opportunity at the business level. So that is the strategy that defines the opportunity. So it becomes much more of an integrated effort rather than only an effort from few pioneers inside of the organization. That applies no matter the sector and the industry.
Thank you. There's also another question for you from someone in India. Will countries like India accept the circular economy mindset, in your opinion, as India's economy is currently dependent on the manufacturing sector to achieve its GDP goals? Furthermore, how can the 4Rs tech help upskill the existing job market to meet the circular economy demand?
So that question, to some extent, doesn't necessarily differ too much from the previous ones. It doesn't matter that it's manufacturing in India, right? It can be farming in Congo, and it has the same thinking behind. It's more about recognizing where technology can accelerate, because we are definitely short of time in the kind of deliverables we would like to have, given the pressure we have on climate. It's more about understanding that technology has an opportunity to boost us to a next level. And that is, of course, a blessing. But again, without the vision on the strategy, it becomes quite difficult. In a context like India, manufacturing being now a driving force means that the integration of the different players in the economy by rethinking the stakeholders universe is more critical than before. Bear in mind that historically, India went from services to manufacturing because of the desire to build infrastructure. Infrastructure is a critical and vital to the evolution of the circular economy model. So countries like India are much better positioned to actually develop this, rather than countries that have a legacy of linearity that then needs to be unbundle or eventually disentangle and move into something else. So I don't think that the contest within India versus other countries is more difficult for this to happen. Just about recognizing the opportunity and creating the linkages at the infrastructure level.
Thank you very much. I believe there's no more questions. So thank you so very much, everyone. It has been such a pleasure to have you all. It's been an inspiring discussion. Before we leave, I'd like to give the floor to someone to share with us a few points on the EU-funded projects that we are part of at CERC and CEA. Saman?
Sure. Okay, so Yorgos, with your permission, if you want to jump in, please don't hesitate, as you're leading these projects at CERC. So at Circular Economy Research Center since 2017, we are heavily active with the EU projects. This one is a shared Green Deal, which is the Horizon Europe. This is one of the new ones that we are working on, and which is basically on social sciences and humanities for achieving a responsible, equitable, and desirable Green Deal. Then we have CIoT, which is Circular Economy and IoT, aiming at finding value creation, value generation, business model innovation, leveraging IoT technologies in the context of circular economy. Then we have the Ideal Cities project. It's a platform that we are obviously working towards smart cities and also inclusiveness of citizens, well-being, making smart cities feel more secure and livable. Then we have SmartShip, which is basically dealing with increasing the efficiency of maritime in the maritime value chain sector, fuel consumption, management, and emissions. And then we have the BioPhoenix, which is also very interesting. Basically, in BioPhoenix, we are working on developing computational DNAs, learning from biological systems in the sense that in the same way that a cell can reconstruct a part of itself in case of a damage, we are now trying to find solutions for softwares in order to be able to regenerate the parts that have been hacked or destroyed or lost for any reason. So this is also very interesting. The other one, I guess I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have it here. The other one, which I also always like to talk about, is the industrial big data as a service. That is also very interesting because in that one we try to bring the big data of the industries together, break the silos, and also analyze the data to find useful data modeling for creating business models for innovating in solutions, industrial innovation, economic innovation, and business model innovation. So these are a couple of projects that we are working on in brief.
Thank you, Saman. Yorgos, would you like to add a couple of points on that as well?
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Saman. Basically, those projects, and there was one of them which was a little bit missing, and I wouldn't like to not show it. And this one here. This is the artificial intelligence skills for circular economy, circular transition, where we work on developing artificial intelligence knowledge and skills, promoting the digital transition and implementing programs on circular economy. This is a very recent EU-funded project that we received, which combines circular economy, artificial intelligence, innovative pedagogical methodology, digital transformation, and the networks. And we have a number of very good partners on that. What I'm trying to share with the project and what we're trying to say here is that what we're trying to do is to get away as far as possible from the greenwashing without saying that we are the gods of knowledge. What we're trying to tell to the people is that we are doing a heavy lifting exercise here. We're trying to test things. We're trying to understand things, and we try to translate them into wider knowledge and help people understand in a better and faster way in their upskilling or reskilling process what is circular economy. So we are heavily invested in research and in data-driven models in order to be able to spin them into knowledge. And again, I will repeat that research is one of our access. The other one is what I mentioned before, is the strategic foresight board as well, that gives us this unique macro perspective that allows us to connect the two words. And in the middle is the actual knowledge that we are creating and offering right now. So all this work that is being done and all this inspiration that we have is just helping us to stay as far as possible from misleading greenwashing practices. And that's the aim of the work that is being done. And that's why we would like also to share part of that work. There's a lot of work that's being done in how we base ourselves in talking and communicate with all of you and trying to support the transition in a very tangible and hands-on way. And actually, that's our way to show that we get our hands dirty as well in order to support the community. Joyce, thank you very much for that. Floor back to you. I think we're reaching to the end. So, you know, we are a little bit academics who can be talking for hours, but I will put a full stop here.
Thank you so much, Yorgos. There are actually a couple of more questions in the chat. If you don't mind that we take a few additional more minutes to answer them. There's a question for you, actually. Someone is asking that companies align circular economy initiatives with climate goals or continue to treat these as discrete initiatives.
So just can you, I'm reading, companies align circular economy initiatives with climate goals or continue to treat these as discrete initiatives. Well, this is not something, I mean, climate goals and circular economy are not two things that are associated. It's just being handled different. Climate goals, it's the end goal that we want to achieve. Circular economy could be the means on how we reach there, okay? So we should not be mixing things with, you know, because when you say climate goal, we would like to achieve climate neutrality, which is the biggest headline in the EU by 2050. Okay, that's fine. That's the goal, climate neutrality. But how you do it, whether you embed it in the individual costs of the company, even if you embed it in the individual goals of the company, the question is always, how do you do that? Okay, you embedded it in your company. How? What's the how that you're using? And the how, believe it or not, you are the only person uniquely knowing in your business, because you know the business, you know your practice better than everybody else. If you understand the goals and you understand the principles, then you can take action in a meaningful way in order to achieve that. So it's in my opinion, is not that it's aligning the initiatives to the goals and not handling them as two separate things. That would be a huge mistake to do.
May I add in on that, Joyce, if it's okay, because I do want to underscore that ESG or climate goals are inextricably linked to circular economy. I started out in the hard sciences in my career, actually, and really saw a lot of differentiation of knowledge as well as communication. Bye, Mark. Thank you. Sorry. Just, you know, knowledge and communication saw those gaps. So, you know, when wanting to evolve the career path, it's using skills, you know, that are able to help communicate that. So the way and goals of getting to the climate standards are inextricably linked to circular economy. You have to have those metrics and understand them in many more ways than just a number for it to really work.
Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you everyone who have joined us today. The recording of this session will be available on our website and social media platforms. But before we leave, I would like you to know that because we would like to enable the upskilling and reskilling of the global population, we're offering 15% discount on all the certification programs that Circular Economy Alliance is offering. You just have to use at the checkout the promo code GoCircular with CEA. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Have a lovely day or night, wherever you are. Goodbye.